Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am here today with my beautiful friend, colleague, and someone I deeply admire. I want to introduce you all to Sheila Kamara. Is it Kamara? Kamara
Kamara,
Hay.
yeah. Yeah.
And she is the founder of Ecstatic Birth, which is an organization dedicated to teaching expectant mothers and birth practitioners that childbirth can be one of the most transformative, empowering, and even pleasurable experiences in a woman's life. She's amazing. I can't wait for you all to hear from her and talk to her. And over the last 18 years, she's trained thousands of women to approach birth in a way that turns everything that the culture tells us about it inside out and upside down. And because, as she says, let's be real, the media tells us that birth is all about pain and numbing, needing to numb out, and it doesn't look like much fun. But her company challenges that narrative and shows that a different experience is possible for fully conscious, fierce, and well prepared women. I love how you say that. And there was
Mm.
a line, Sheila, that made me reach out to you. It really struck me on your website. And it's that to enjoy giving birth to your child, you have to train like a marathon. You will be
Mhm.
swimming upstream against deeply rooted cultural messages, personal and societal constructs. And that's exactly why I wanted to talk to you and brought you here today. Because in my program, The Shift, which is all about, it's a 9-month program that is all about helping people, conscious individuals, you know, do the inner work and the outer work to contribute to the consciousness shift that we need to see in the world. And so, I saw it made me think of your work because, how you guide women to confront and release those deeply ingrained beliefs about birth, um, and reclaim their voice. It got me wondering, how could my community, who is committed to helping what's happening on the planet and helping shift that, what could we learn from the ecstatic birth process, and how could your approach move us away? One of the things I'm noticing is like moving away from staying numb or disengaged from what's happening in our
Mm.
country, and instead show up fully present, empowered, and dare I say, even with pleasure, which I, in this moment, can't quite see it, but that's why I'm talking to you. We make this much needed shift in consciousness. So I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and explore that. So, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me. And as I was sharing with you before we started, I think this is literally the most important conversation to have. Like, I think this inquiry of how do we really show up for the highest possibility, the highest vision? How do we hold that in our own bodies? And what does that mean for us individually before we even talk about collectively? I think it is the most important inquiry for anybody to be having right now. So thank you for inviting me to talk about it with you.
Yes. Yeah, because as you were talking, I was thinking about having so many conversations with people right now about what's happening in our country. And there's just this sense of like bearing down, holding on, fighting against, being in like, it's like that natural urge to like fight back when things are going, rights are being taken away, things are being shut down, financial insecurity, like, and I can feel everybody wanting, like, just being sucked into like this
Yeah.
terrible, this is terrible. And there are so many terrible things, like we're not going to sugarcoat. There's crazy things happening right now. But I'm curious, what do you, yeah, say more about how you see it through the lens of ecstatic birth and yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like I've felt for quite a few years now that we are in this space of like collective rebirth, right? So my work is physical childbirth, but it's also extrapolating that into what this means as far as whatever you're birthing, right? Whether you're
Mhm.
rebirthing yourself, whether you're birthing a creative project. And also for each of us, we are constantly rebirthing ourselves. So this is really about the reclamation of like feminine energy into a process where, our world is very much this masculine energy world of go, 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 go. And the reclamation that happens in the world of ecstatic birth when you're taking this experience of physical childbirth, which most people will experience as scary or painful, or they might suffer through it. How do you
Yeah.
take that and make it a pleasurable experience, a transformative experience, a powerful experience? So much of that is about reclaiming the essence of the feminine, honoring
Mm,
the design of the body, honoring how feminine energy flows, and bringing it back into a place of balance with our masculine.
mm,
And I'm using the frameworks of feminine and masculine. It could be yin and yang. It could be like a lot of different, surrender and uh, more outward. But it's really this place of balance where a lot of the traits that we will understand as more like feminine from the body perspective and also from how our energy flows are have been bulldozed. And so when I look at the planet right now and I take a step back, it's like we've gone through quite a few waves of contractions in the last, let's say, 10 years, COVID being a big one, what's happening globally, another one. There's a lot of waves of contractions, and there's a lot of, quite honestly, like ugliness that's coming up with these contractions, a lot of things that feel like really intense that can kick up fear. And if you look at that from the perspective of labor, contractions are the work that your body has to do in order to open, to expand, to have you become who you need to be to birth your baby. So, what I'm
mm.
feeling globally is that we're in this space where there is this vision. I mean, it almost feels biblical at times, right? There is
Yeah.
this vision of like, what could we be in relation to ourselves, to each other, and to the planet that is so beautiful. And now we're going through these waves that's exposing all the ways that we're not that. And
Right.
so this is the work that we have to do individually and collectively. But the most important piece, I think, is that you can hold that highest vision.
Yes. Say more. Because that's exactly like we've been talking a lot, or I've been writing a lot about like not being an againstness, because againstness just creates, it keeps the whole thing in place,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know? And so I love this idea. And to me, that feels like a masculine thing where we're like, we're kind of doing this, or it's like someone gets up here and then someone else goes and we're like pushing each other down. There's like a fighting against. Because
Yeah.
that's what happens when we feel like, I think that's a base reaction. So I'm curious how from ecstatic birth you look at it or train people. Because it's like, yeah, I remember even giving birth to my son, and I had this like initial, like, you have these like base, like, they're like, don't push. I'm like, how am I not going to push? Like, I
Yeah.
want to push. And so anyway,
Yeah.
I'm curious from your standpoint, like, yeah, how do we show up and hold the vision when we're activated into the like fear and whatnot?
Yeah, I think a big piece of this for me is body, like your physical body, right? So if you're witnessing something and it's intense, overwhelming, even emotionally, not even physically, you will notice that you have a physical sense of contraction. And as you pointed out, it's like in labor, when you're resisting the contractions, that ramps up the intensity, that makes you suffer more. It actually doesn't get you through to the other side in the most efficient way. In fact, it makes everything much harder, makes your body have to work harder, and it ramps up the intensity, which ramps up the fear. So if you're in this place of like pushing back and resistance and contraction, the first thing is to understand that you're absolutely right. That is counter to the process. So when you're in a contraction, the real question is like, what's here for me, right? If contractions are the work that we have to do in order to be able to get to our next expansion, what's that inner work for you? And so just on the body level, physiologically, that feeling of tightness, that feeling of resistance, that feeling of contraction, there's a lot you can work with right there before you even get into the story. How do you tend to
Ah,
your body? And
yes.
so ecstatic birth is not just about denying that like birth can be intense and that it has the potential to be pleasurable. I mean, I could talk to you about that for forever, so I won't go
Yeah.
down that like rabbit hole, but it's
Oh,
also
we can
about
do it later. We can do another one. Okay.
absolutely, but it's also about understanding how you support the process in ways that feel good. And I think that's really the spot you're asking about is like, how do you support all of this intensity in your body in a way that feels good?
Okay,
And
wait. I need to pause you for 1 second.
yeah,
I make sure everybody here is noticing. We're not saying deny. that you feel constricted or that you should look at this as like it's just a lesson. It's like no, whatever you're feeling and upset
Yeah.
about, because I've had people who are like, I fought all these years for this to like for us women to have rights and I'm pissed that I can't like, and it's like that is righteous. Whatever you're feeling is
Yeah.
righteous. It's just how do you support what you're saying is like how do we support ourselves right there, not
Hmm.
denying what we're feeling, but how
Hmm.
do we work with it as part of our own evolution and our own sense of like being kind and compassionate and loving towards ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not stuck in that. Is that what, just to clarify, is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
that's exactly it. You're not denying it at all. In fact, like sometimes I'll have people ask me, like, how do you even define pleasure? And for me, it's really meeting yourself wherever you're at. So, and being able to express that. So, in the same way that if you're in grief and you're like, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine, like you can hear the contractedness of that. When you finally cry and you finally allow it to flow, you feel so much better. So, when you're in this contracted place, there's no flow. There's no energy flow, right? There's no blood flow. There's no oxygen flow. So just starting again on the level of the body, how do you feel so much better? Being able to meet yourself in that contracted place, breathe into it, feel it, use your sound, use your breath, use your movement. I mean, there's a million different modalities and a million different practices. So each of you will find kind of what fits best for you. But purely from like, how do you navigate labor? It's, oh, right? Like a birthing woman is going to feel, she's going to sound, she's going to
Yes.
press, she's going to move. And
Yes.
so all of that intensity that you're feeling, the invitation is on a body level, meet yourself there. Let it be expressed, let it be felt, let it flow through you so that you have space to hold that highest vision and possibility. Because I'm willing to bet when you're in that contracted place, it's like, oh no, the world is falling apart. And you're actually holding the opposite.
Yes. Yes. And when you talk from a soul center, so from the spiritual psychology level, we often talk about our essence is peace, love, joy,
Yeah.
abundance, connection, all of that, right? And so when we are contracted, it's like we don't have access to in that moment
Yeah.
that space of like knowing that this is okay. I'm going to be okay. Like,
Yeah.
we're going to get through that, whatever that might be, that sense of truth, capital T truth. And so I hear what you're saying is like, as we move it through our bodies and
Mhm.
express in ways that allow it to move through, I would say that gives us then access to our inner wisdom, to our guidance, to that higher vision, because
Mhm.
now we're not collapsed on it. We're
Yeah,
open to it.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, sorry, go ahead.
Just real quick, how would you, because I know I've worked with a lot of women who maybe don't have as much practice in being in their bodies, myself included at times. And
Yeah.
so but I have a lot more freedom having done a lot of work in sounding, in hitting my pillow, in doing things like that. How would you encourage someone who maybe has felt afraid of expressing their rage, afraid of if they open the can of grief that they're never gonna like fall? It's like, how do you guide people from your lens,
Yeah.
giving them permission to like start, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it really doesn't take a lot. When we're living in a world or in a day-to-day state of being of disconnection, it can feel like, oh God, like how do I even begin to go there? But it really doesn't take a lot. So a foundational practice that I do with everyone is just, kind of like a body scan where your attention is inside your body and starting to notice what does it feel like in your head? What does it feel like in your throat? What does it feel like in your heart? What is it? And that might seem really simple, but what that is you're starting to learn the language of your body. Your body speaks to you through the language of sensation. So that's primarily like the foundational step is just coming into connection. So it could be a practice like that. It could even be just like set a timer on your phone for 10 minutes and just bring your attention inward and just notice like, oh, my heart
Mhm.
feels tight. Okay. Like my toes are cold. Like just scanning, what do you feel and where you feel it? This is the first point of connection is learning to understand the language of your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then once you have that, then you can use different practices to create more flow, even before you get to expressing the rage, expressing the grief, expressing all of that thing. But the tools of birth are visualization, breath, sound, and movement. Those are
Hmm.
also the tools of like sensual expansion. Those are the tools that will help you get from a contracted place to a place of flow. Now, is it going to solve all the problems in the world? No, but it will help you feel much better in your body. It will have you feel much more resourced. It will also support, toning the vagus nerve, like building more safety in your nervous system, which are foundational things if you're going to start to really feel the layers of emotion that you've been holding, for days, months, maybe years, your whole life. You need to have that like strong foundation of safety in your body.
Yes. Yes. And to me, I feel like that's one of the spiritual opportunities of this time. Given what in the world, if we look at how women are I think us reconnecting, us doing that, us reclaiming like what is ours, our bodies, our sensations, our emotions, all of that is
Mhm.
part of helping to create the world that we want to live in, which is
Yeah.
one that is more, that includes all of that. So I love these practices that you're saying. And it's like, and to anyone, again, I know the people that are coming into my world right now are really like, how do I tolerate what's happening in the world? And it's like, you don't tolerate it, you move it through. You do
Yeah.
these practices that Sheila's talking about, that you're talking about, because it's important,
Yeah.
essential,
I
say. Es-
essential. I train birth workers, and a lot of the birth workers that come through my programs are supporting, let's say, a hospital birth. So they're seeing the contrast over and over and over again of what they're holding the vision for. And so a lot of the work that we do is exactly this, is like we all learn things in our head and then try to put it out. But with the birth workers, I have them learn to feel, learn to create flow in their body, learn to access the sensation of like pleasure and oxytocin in their body, first within themselves, then out into the world, sort of neutral, then connecting with others, and then bring it into scenarios that feel charged. So it's very hard. Like basically, you're saying we're in a charged scenario right now. How do we meet ourselves there? It takes it's like a practice. You have to practice connecting with your body in the most safe spaces and then slowly bring it out into the world so that you can hold what I call that tone in your body, regardless of what you're seeing. So if you're a birth worker, you know that our bodies like transmit, and this is true for everyone, by the way. All of our bodies are constantly like transmitting with each other. But especially in the birthing field, it's very porous. Like the birthing mom can really take it in. So if you can hold the tone for pleasure, you're literally giving that to the next person through your presence. And
Yes,
so this is like you're talking about, okay, how do we change the world? And it might seem like what I'm talking about is so minuscule and it's so minute, but it's actually the most powerful thing you
totally,
can do because if you can hold that tone,
totally. Yeah,
regardless, this is contagious. We are all energetically in the same soup. The more
yeah,
people that can hold that tone, the more that will become the reality. And
totally.
Donna, can I share a little bit about the Kundalini activation work
Yes,
I'm
please.
doing?
Let me just say real quick before you dive
Yeah.
into it. That's exactly why I've been called to do the shift, because it's like I know that it starts like if consciousness is going to shift, it starts with each of us contributing to the outcome we want to see, embodying, it's like if we are like we want our world to be more compassionate and inclusive, then it has to start with us being holding inclusivity and equity in our bodies and in our minds, bodies, and spirits so that we can be that energy in the world, which then contributes to the collective. So I am on board with what you're saying 100%. And I love that you're doing it through the birth lens. It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing.
So,
Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, tell me about Kundalini.
So how it relates, this place of like flow, right? In labor and delivery, in navigating physical childbirth, it's always about coming back to flow. When you have that blood flow, when you have that energy flow, when you have that oxygen flow, your body knows what to do. And it also makes the labor shorter. It helps the process on every stage. So using these tools of visualization, breath, sound, and movement to give your body nourishment and pleasure to increase that flow, is really supportive. Now, I already touched in on the piece of, your presence as a birth worker is everything, right? So if
Right.
you can hold pleasure in your body, if you can hold bliss, if you can hold ecstasy, which as you already presenced is kind of like the nature of the universe,
Yeah.
when a woman is giving birth, the portal's open because literally there's a new soul coming through, right? So this is a very porous space. So if you can hold that space, you can transmit that space. So
Hmm.
one of the things I've always been really passionate about is what are more tools to bring more flow? What are more tools? What are more ways that we can bring more flow? And for the past 18 years, it's been a lot of like body practices, connecting with your body in the way that I described. But I also wanted women to understand what's possible in our bodies. So I do
Hmm.
guest teacher master classes, and I have like a friend and colleague who you probably know. She's from the world of the School of
Yeah.
Womanly Arts, who had opened up to this like omni-orgasmic flow in her body. Like she could literally just drop in, and she is and it's a deeply spiritual experience.
Yeah.
And so I seduced her. I said, please, can you just come show my birth workers what's possible? And so we talked about it. She came and she did a master class with us. We talked a bit about it a bit, and then she gave them a glimpse of what was possible. The next day, one of my practitioners in England emails me, oh my God, I'm in the midst of a 2-hour orgasm. Wow. Okay. So a day later, we get her in to talk about it. And it was literally like witnessing that, feeling that. And this was virtual, by the way, witnessing that, feeling that had opened up that portal for her.
Wow.
So I became really interested in this idea of like transmission, body to body, like how we activate each other. What
Yeah.
my body tells your body that's not happening kind of on a speaking, mental, cognitive level, but on a transmission level. So that took me down a rabbit hole. I actually did a few events with this incredible woman, and these were live, and a lot of the women popped. So, like, just witnessing her in her omni orgasmic flow opened up portals in our bodies to
Wow.
experience that too. I was introduced through that journey to a teacher of Kundalini activation, which, Kundalini is the same, it's like that life force, sexual energy that we all have within us. And in that space, similarly, it's like, okay, one person's kind of holding that in their body, letting it flow through them in the presence of others, and the others are receiving it body to body. So, why I'm sharing all of this is I've been on that journey now for 2 years. I got certified as a facilitator a year and a half ago, started sharing it. This place of body to body transmission, it, having now been immersed in that conversation for a few years,
Yeah.
people are popping up everywhere that have opened up to this really deeply spiritual place of like the nature of the universe is bliss, it's pleasure, it's love, it's ecstasy, it's omni orgasmic flow. The
Yeah.
more people open up to that, the more we're sharing it with everybody around us. And I've already seen just in 2 years, like in my dabbling in this realm, how much is already opening. And that gives me like profound hope and really, really inspires me to share this work. And I've been sharing this work. I shared with you, Donna, that like
Yeah.
I went in, it was October 7th. I'm a Mizrahi Jew. My family's from Iraq. We were expelled from Iraq. We moved to Iran. We were expelled from Iran. So this massacre on October 7th that was really like deeply personal to me. I know a lot of people that live there, I have extended family there. And so I went into training for the Kundalini activation work on October 8th. It's just the way it happened. And I would go into these energetic realms, and a lot of what happens with the Kundalini activation transmissions is very similar to what we talked about. You just relax and feel. And so emotions might come up. You might move, you might express. But for me, it was a lot of like grief, a lot of anger, a lot of expression was coming up through my movement, through my sound. I would go in, and this is like in the days, weeks, months after, with a lot of intensity, emotions. Oh God, I can't believe what is this world? What is happening? And I would come out like, this is okay. Like, it's all right. We're going to be great. Like, people are amazing. Like, I would come out being able to hold the highest possibility for all. And so
Love.
it's like that place of the high, like being able to hold the vision in your mind's eye, and then also like really being able to feel that in your body. It's one thing to say, I believe this is possible, but kind of be in that like
Right,
contract, angry place.
right, right.
But if you can hold it in your body, then
Yeah.
you're doing your work.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And I'm like, what I love too is the example of like, I was in my very human grief, anger, fear reaction to what's happening, meeting it with the life force energy and the orgasmic energy and all of that and that spiritual energy, and that being the shift into like, oh, now I can hold this vision. And to me
Yeah.
that's also part of, I love this introduction more into the body stuff, because through spiritual psychology, it's a lot of mind, emotions, work. We're using words a lot and whatnot. And people can get to the place of embodiment through that way. But I think there's also, I love the additional for my more body-based people, because I have some people in my world that are like, I need movement too, and and I think we all need it, but that are drawn to that. It's so important to see that this is the portal through, and the opportunity of this time, this great
Yeah.
awakening. Before we
Yeah.
started, we talked about like, this is like, we're in the middle of a huge rebirth as
Yeah.
a country, as a planet,
Mhm.
between, like you said, the pandemic, we've had fires, we've had floods, we've had like, weather related, all these weather related events that are totally upending where people there. It's like where we think safety comes from.
Mhm.
It's like it's being challenged, and it's asking each of us to find our own place inside of our bodies, inside of our spirits, inside of us, so that we can stand and bring forward what we want to bring forward. And it's like, so I love what you're talking about here. Yeah.
And
So
it's all like really deeply interconnected because spirituality is a big part of that. It's a big part of that. And like I know there are schools of thought of like spirituality is transcendence from the body. Again, everyone's got kind of their different pathways. For me, in my work and in what I share, it's actually through the body. Like you find those places of like deep connection to all that is through the body, through the sensations of the body. And ultimately it's that place again of like flow, bringing yourself back to flow. When you're so contracted, you're disconnected. How can you bring yourself back to flow? Right?
yes. Oh my gosh. I want to talk to you for 4 hours, but I know we have 3 more minutes before we both have to
Okay.
get going. So I
Yeah.
guess we'll have to do a part two. But I would love for the people in my community to know, because I know you've talked about, you do work with birth practitioners and mothers that are getting ready to have birth, but you also work with humans that are birthing other things. Can you tell us
Yeah.
a bit more about different ways people could experience your work? I know there's two ways you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so all of this work of like how do you come back to a state of flow is the golden thread that runs through the physical birth work as well as the more metaphorical birth work. So there's a few ways. I do run, and I didn't mention this to you, but it's occurring to me, it's really relevant to our conversation. I do run a lot of like body-based programs, like how do you connect to your body? How do you connect to your pleasure? Um, I am also trained in female sexuality, so I do that work. So there's that. The Kundalini activation work I offer online monthly. That's a really easy kind of in if that's something that you're attracted to, like energy transmissions. And then this space of the reclamation from the physical childbirth, from feeling painful to pleasurable. Like, what is this space? There's a program I run called the Ecstatic Goddess where we look at this space and the journey of birthing and the pieces of reclamation and bring it into whatever it is you're birthing, rebirthing yourself, birthing your projects, being a part of the collective rebirth. So that's another piece that I also offer.
Amazing. And I'm going to put in the video description, I'll put links to everything so everybody has that and they can find you. Do you have a newsletter or anything like that too that they could?
Yeah, so you can sign up at ecstatic-birth.com and you can just kind of say like I'm into physical childbirth or I'm into more like feminine wisdom and awakening, you can kind of choose your pathway and or the Kundalini activation. So you can find me on social under the handle Ecstatic Birth on most platforms. And my website is ecstatic-birth.com that they could join the newsletter. Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh my gosh. Well, it's been such an honor and a pleasure. Your work is so needed right now. I love that we're part of the soul tribe that's bringing forth, like, holding the vision for the larger collective shift that's occurring. And I just adore you. And I can't wait to see what's next for you.
Yeah, back at you. I'm so grateful that you're talking about this and you're bringing this forward and amplifying it. Thank you so much, Donna.
Yes. Thanks, Sheila. Bye. Okay.